The morning had started like any other. People went about their daily routines. Children laughed on the playgrounds, and the hum of life continued across cities and towns. There was no warning, no sense of danger. Earth had always felt safe, as if the planet itself had a shield no one could break. Humans had faced wars, natural disasters, and pandemics, but there had never been anything like what was about to happen now. It began with strange lights in the sky. At first, people thought it was a meteor shower, something rare but beautiful. Scientists on observatories around the world noticed something different. The objects were moving too deliberately, too perfectly, to be natural. Within hours, radar systems picked up massive shapes entering Earth's orbit. They were not like any satellites humans had ever built. They were enormous, dark, and impossibly advanced. Governments scrambled to respond, sending messages into space, hoping for communication. The public watched anxiously as news channels broadcast live images of the alien ships hovering over major cities. Panic started to spread. People rushed to supermarkets, filling carts with food and water. Parents gathered their children, unsure if there would be a tomorrow. Cities that had once thrived on routine now felt fragile and exposed. Scientists tried to analyze the alien ships. They were like nothing seen before. Smooth surfaces that reflected light strangely, symbols etched in patterns that made no sense to human eyes, and energy readings that defied known physics. Military leaders held urgent meetings, debating the best way to protect humanity. The problem was simple and terrifying. Humanity had no weapons capable of standing against this level of technology. Despite the fear, leaders attempted diplomacy. A message was sent, translated into multiple languages, broadcast into space. Humans asked the invaders to explain their presence, to reason with them. There was a pause, and then the alien response came, not in words, but through a display that lit up the sky. It was a message of demand, surrender or face annihilation. The aliens claimed Earth as part of a vast empire, centuries in the making, and warned that resistance would be meaningless. The first attack came without warning. The sky above a major city glowed red as alien weapons fired down. Entire blocks were reduced to rubble within seconds. People screamed and ran, searching for shelter, but there was almost nowhere safe. The world watched in horror as news outlets broadcast live images of destruction, unable to hide the scale of the devastation. Amid the chaos, human resilience began to emerge. Soldiers, first responders, and ordinary citizens showed courage. Firefighters ran into burning buildings to save children. Military pilots scrambled to intercept alien crafts, only to find their weapons were almost useless. But even when defeat seemed certain, the human spirit refused to break. Civilians helped each other, carrying the injured, giving water, sharing shelter. Stories of heroism spread quickly, giving hope amid despair. A group of scientists in a secret research facility began studying the alien technology. They examined debris from the attacks, trying to understand the enemy. They discovered that while the ships were powerful, they were not completely invincible. Certain patterns in their energy fields hinted at vulnerabilities. The knowledge was dangerous, but exciting. Humanity had a chance, however small, to fight back. News of the invasion reached every corner of the globe. Ordinary people, far from cities, witnessed the sky darkening with alien ships. Farmers abandoned fields, teachers gathered students in schools and homes, and families huddled together at night, fearing another strike. The atmosphere of fear was intense, but so was the sense of unity. For the first time in generations, humanity faced a threat that affected everyone equally. Old rivalries, political disputes, and social divisions seemed meaningless compared to survival. Military strategists worked tirelessly, analyzing the alien strikes. They realized that the attacks were not random. They were precise, calculated, designed to intimidate and demoralize humans. Every major city, every strategic location had been targeted first, but humans were learning quickly. Civil defense systems were activated, and emergency shelters were reinforced. Citizens were instructed on evacuation plans, but the speed of the alien assault often outpaced preparations. During this time, small acts of bravery became legendary. In one city, a group of volunteers guided hundreds of residents to safety through underground tunnels, avoiding the alien energy blasts overhead. In another town, a pilot sacrificed his life by leading an alien ship away from a crowded neighborhood, giving civilians time to flee. These stories spread through social media and broadcasts, inspiring others to act, to resist, to survive. Amid the fear, there were moments of awe. Scientists and ordinary citizens alike gazed at the alien ships, marveling at their size and design. They were terrifying, yes, but also breathtaking, unlike anything humans had ever imagined. Some speculated about the technology behind them, imagining possibilities beyond human comprehension. Even in destruction, there was a strange sense of wonder, an understanding that the universe was much bigger than humanity had ever realized. Governments began forming emergency coalitions. Countries that had once been adversaries put aside their differences to focus on survival. Communication channels were opened for coordination of defense and evacuation. Humanity realized that the only way to fight back was together. Leaders urged citizens to stay calm, to follow instructions, and to protect each other. The message was simple. Survival depended on courage, intelligence, and unity. As the first 48 hours passed, the world began to adapt. Humans studied the alien strikes, learning patterns and predicting possible targets. Engineers worked day and night to retrofit weapons and defenses, trying to exploit the smallest weaknesses. Civilians built improvised shelters and shared resources. Fear remained, but determination was growing. Humanity was no longer just reacting. They were preparing. By the third day, the scale of the invasion became clear. Entire cities had been destroyed, millions of people were displaced, and economies were collapsing. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm, humans showed remarkable resilience. Communities organized search and rescue missions. Scientists continued to study alien technology. Pilots and soldiers trained tirelessly, determined to find a way to defend their homes. The alien empire underestimated humans. They saw Earth as an easy target, a planet to conquer quickly. But humans were unpredictable. Their emotions, courage, and ingenuity could not be calculated. Even in chaos, people were finding ways to resist. They were not surrendering quietly. Each act of defiance, no matter how small, sent a message. Humanity would fight, and humanity would survive. As night fell on the fourth day, the sky was filled with the glowing shapes of alien ships. But lights also flickered from Earth emergency flares, signals, and improvised weapons being tested. The contrast was striking. Advanced invaders versus resourceful humans. It was a battle of sheer power against creativity, of fear against determination. In homes and shelters across the planet, families huddled together. They whispered stories, sang songs, and tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for their children. Even in the face of unimaginable terror, humans held on to hope. They did not know what the future would bring, but they knew one thing for certain. They would not give up without a fight. The first week ended with a moment of tense silence. The alien ships hovered, as if assessing the planet, calculating their next move. Humans, meanwhile, continued to organize, to learn, to adapt. In this moment, the true battle was beginning, not just for survival, but for the soul of humanity. The world had changed forever, and the invasion had revealed something essential. Humans were far stronger, far braver, and far more determined than anyone, alien or human, had ever imagined. And so, Earth stood trembling but unbroken, ready to face the storm. The alien empire had arrived, expecting to conquer a planet, but they were about to discover a force they could not predict, a force born not of technology or power, but of human courage, unity, and unyielding rage. The days following the first attacks were some of the hardest humanity had ever faced. Entire cities were reduced to ash, and millions of people were displaced. Fear and uncertainty filled the air, yet amidst all this despair, humans began to fight back. The first instinct was survival, but survival quickly grew into resistance. People realized that running or hiding could only protect them for so long. To stand a chance, they had to act, and they had to act together. Military forces around the world regrouped, analyzing what had happened and what could be done. Soldiers were tired, but determination burned in their eyes. They had seen the alien. Weapons, the enormous ships, and the sheer destructive power. Yet they also noticed patterns, small flaws in the attacks that hinted the invaders were not perfect. Civilians were encouraged to stay safe, but those willing to help were recruited for critical support, delivering supplies, aiding in evacuations, and maintaining communications in areas under threat. At a high-security research facility, a group of scientists worked around the clock. They studied debris from destroyed alien ships, searching for weaknesses. Every piece of alien material told a story. Some parts were stronger than anything humans had ever seen, yet even these advanced materials had a few imperfections. Engineers and programmers collaborated, designing weapons and tools that could exploit these weaknesses. The progress was slow, but it gave humanity a glimmer of hope, the knowledge that the alien invaders, despite their power, were not invincible. Meanwhile, ordinary people found their own ways to fight back. In towns far from the front lines, communities trained to respond to emergencies, using improvised alarms and defensive measures. People shared whatever knowledge they had. Some understood mechanics, others medicine, some simply offered courage and leadership. Small acts of ingenuity multiplied quickly. Homemade communication networks connected communities, allowing them to warn each other when alien ships were near. Even children played a role, carrying messages and helping in minor but important tasks. The first counterattacks were terrifying and desperate. Fighter pilots launched missions against alien crafts, though most missions failed. Their weapons barely scratched the invaders' shields, and losses were high. Civilians watched from below, hoping for a miracle. Despite the overwhelming odds, every attempt revealed new possibilities. Human strategists realized that the alien ships relied on coordinated attacks and predictable movement patterns. If humans could exploit those patterns, even in small ways, they might have a chance to push back. Around the same time, underground resistance groups began forming in major cities. These were not official military units, but ordinary people who refused to accept defeat. They learned quickly, studying alien attacks and predicting where the ships would strike next. They sabotaged alien supply lines, destroyed smaller crafts, and gathered intelligence wherever possible. Their actions often carried great risk, but their courage inspired others. The world began to see that resistance was possible, and morale, though fragile, began to rise. The alien empire, confident and unchallenged, was not prepared for such resilience. They expected humans to surrender quickly, yet each failed attack, each disruption of their plans, forced them to reconsider. They were powerful, but they were not omnipotent. Every small victory by humans, whether it was damaging a ship, decoding a message, or simply surviving an attack, sent a warning across the galaxy. Earth would not be conquered easily. In one coastal city, a daring plan unfolded. Civilians and military personnel, collaborated to lure an alien ship into a trap. Using decoy signals and improvised explosives, they targeted the ship's weak points. When the plan succeeded, and the massive craft exploded above the city, people erupted in celebration. It was a small victory in the scale of the war, but the message was clear. Humans could strike back, and they could win. News of the success spread quickly, fueling hope and determination across the planet. Scientists also made breakthroughs in communication. By intercepting alien signals, they began to understand the structure of their commands. It became possible to anticipate attacks, to coordinate defenses, and even to send false signals to confuse the enemy. For the first time, humanity had the upper hand, even if only in small measures. The discovery gave engineers the confidence to build more advanced weapons, combining human creativity with the captured alien technology. Meanwhile, civilians continued to play a crucial role. Farmers diverted resources to support refugees. Teachers helped organize children in shelters, maintaining some sense of normalcy despite the chaos. Citizens who had no formal combat training became scouts, messengers, and coordinators. Each person contributed in a way that mattered. Even small acts, keeping someone safe, sharing food, reporting alien movements, added up to a larger force. Humanity's strength was not in a single weapon or ship, but in unity and courage. Humanity also learned to adapt emotionally. Trauma was everywhere, yet people supported each other. Communities developed networks to care for the injured, console the grieving, and share critical information. People spoke openly about fear, loss, and hope, realizing that emotional resilience was as important as physical defense. Those who survived the first attacks became teachers and leaders for the next wave, passing on knowledge and inspiring courage. The alien empire grew frustrated. Their initial confidence had been shattered by humans' unpredictable behavior. They had underestimated the emotional and creative capacity of a species that refused to bow down. Each failed attack required recalibration. Each small loss caused ripples of doubt among their commanders. Humans were disorganized in the eyes of the invaders, yet that disorganization was exactly what made them so dangerous. They were unpredictable, fearless, and relentless dot in the skies above major cities. Humans conducted increasingly daring strikes. Fighter jets flew in unconventional patterns to confuse alien targeting systems. Improvised missiles designed to exploit weaknesses in shields scored hits. Ground teams set traps for smaller alien crafts, using terrain and human ingenuity to level the playing field. Every strike, every act of defiance brought confidence and momentum. Humanity was learning, evolving faster than the alien empire had anticipated. As the days turned into weeks, the world began to feel a strange balance between fear and hope. People woke each day knowing danger could strike at any moment, yet they also woke knowing they had the tools, knowledge, and courage to fight back. The initial panic had transformed into a sense of purpose. Humanity was no longer merely surviving, they were resisting. The narrative of helplessness that the aliens had expected was gone. Humans had found their fight, and they were ready too. Grow Stronger. The first true coordinated human offensive was planned meticulously. Scientists, military leaders, and civilians collaborated to strike at several alien outposts at once. Using a combination of captured technology, experimental weapons, and human unpredictability, the attack aimed to demonstrate that Earth would not be subdued. The operation succeeded beyond expectations, destroying key enemy installations and sending a powerful message. Humans could not only defend themselves, but also challenge the Empire. This success changed everything. The morale of humanity soared, while the alien empire began to respect the courage of their opponents. Small acts of heroism now had ripple effects across continents. Ordinary people shared stories of bravery, families protecting neighbors, soldiers risking everything for civilians, pilots who returned against impossible odds. Each story reinforced the belief that humans were capable of more than anyone, even themselves, had imagined. Yet, even in victory, the cost was immense. Entire cities lay in ruins, millions of people had died, and countless others were traumatized. But humanity learned something critical. Survival was possible, resistance was possible, and hope could exist even in the darkest hours. People began to rebuild what they could, using the ruins as fortifications, laboratories, and planning centers. Every setback was an opportunity to learn, and every small victory added strength to the human spirit. By the end of the second part of the invasion, humanity had transformed. They were no longer passive victims. They were strategists, innovators, and fighters. They were united by necessity, but also by courage and determination. The alien empire had come expecting to conquer, but what they found instead was a species willing to defy the impossible. Humanity had discovered that rage, resilience, and ingenuity could be as powerful as the most advanced weapons. The stage was set for the next phase of the conflict. Humans had learned, adapted, and begun to fight back in meaningful ways. They had discovered that weakness was temporary, courage was endless, and unity could challenge even the mightiest of foes. The alien empire would soon realize that Earth was not a prize to be taken lightly. Humans had begun to turn the tide, and the battle for the planet had only just begun. The news of humanity's first successful counterattacks against the alien invaders spread like wildfire. For the first time, humans realized that they were not helpless. The victories were small, but they carried immense significance. Across the globe, people began to understand that survival was no longer just about hiding. It was about standing up, taking action, and fighting back. Cities and towns that had once been paralyzed by fear were beginning to organize themselves, sharing information, resources, and courage. The alien empire, watching from orbit, grew concerned. They had underestimated humans, assuming Earth would fall easily under their superior technology. Yet time and again, humans defied expectations. Engineers and scientists worked day and night, improving weapons, learning from every failed strike, and turning mistakes into opportunities. Every attempt to anticipate and outsmart the invaders strengthened humanity's position. This resistance did not go unnoticed by other civilizations in the galaxy. Word of humans' courage and ingenuity reached distant star systems. Some alien species had always feared the Empire, but they now saw an unexpected hope: Earth. Rumors of the human resistance spread quietly, in coded signals and secret messages, suggesting that humanity's fight was becoming more than a planetary conflict, was a spark that could influence the balance of the entire galaxy. Back on Earth, people continued to adapt to the new reality. Military forces coordinated across borders, forming temporary alliances to strengthen defenses. Soldiers from different countries trained together, sharing knowledge and strategies, learning to operate as one unified force. Civilians contributed as well, building improvised shelters, distributing food and water, and maintaining communication networks. Humanity was learning that survival depended not only on weapons, but also on intelligence, cooperation, and the courage to face the unknown at the same time. The alien attacks grew more aggressive. Ships that had once hovered silently in the sky now unleashed waves of energy weapons on major cities, testing human defenses. Entire neighborhoods were destroyed, forcing people to flee and adapt quickly. Yet with every attack, humans learned. They observed the patterns of alien strikes, studied weaknesses, and found ways to anticipate danger. What once seemed like random destruction now became data, a source of power for those determined to fight back. Scientists working in underground laboratories made significant discoveries. They managed to decode parts of the alien communication network, learning how the invaders coordinated their strikes and shared information. This knowledge allowed humans to intercept messages, predict movements, and occasionally mislead the enemy. The idea that humans could manipulate alien technology, even in small ways, ignited hope. Engineers began creating experimental weapons that combined human innovation with captured alien parts. These were crude, dangerous, and untested, but they represented humanity's ingenuity and refusal to surrender. Meanwhile, ordinary people performed acts of bravery every day. Families evacuated entire communities, guiding neighbors to safety. Teachers and volunteers protected children, keeping routines alive to provide some sense of normalcy. Farmers diverted food and supplies to refugee centers. People who had never considered themselves heroes now found themselves making decisions that could save hundreds of lives. The alien attacks had forced humanity to reveal its true strength, resilience, creativity, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. As the weeks passed, resistance groups began to coordinate on a global scale. Cities and regions that had initially acted independently started sharing intelligence, planning joint operations, and supporting each other's efforts. Underground networks transmitted real-time information about alien movements. Small victories in one region inspired other areas to act boldly. Humans began to realize that, collectively, they could challenge the alien empire, not just survive, but fight back effectively. The alien empire, however, remained confident that Earth would eventually be subdued. Their attacks became more ruthless, designed not only to destroy, but to intimidate. They targeted human infrastructure, aiming to cripple the planet's ability to resist. Yet each attack, instead of breaking humanity, seemed to strengthen resolve. People adapted, rebuilt, and found new ways to protect themselves. Every challenge became a lesson, every loss a motivation to improve. In one daring operation, a group of human pilots and engineers executed a plan to intercept an alien supply convoy. Using a combination of improvised weapons and strategic deception, they managed to destroy critical components of the convoy, delaying reinforcements and giving humans valuable time to reinforce their defenses. It was a risky mission, and many lives were lost, but the psychological impact was immense. Humans were no longer just reacting, they were striking back. The alien empire began to take notice, realizing that Earth might not be conquered as easily as they had assumed. Alongside these military efforts, civilians contributed in other ways that were just as crucial. Communication networks maintained by volunteers allowed cities under attack to coordinate evacuations and supply deliveries. Scientists developed portable energy shields and emergency medical devices. Ordinary people risked their lives to repair damaged equipment, carry messages, and support those in need. Every small contribution was vital, and every act of courage became a story that inspired millions around the globe. At this stage, humanity began to think strategically. Leaders and scientists realized that the fight was not only about defending cities, but also about changing the nature of the war. By targeting supply lines, exploiting weaknesses in alien technology, and spreading misinformation, humans could gain advantages despite being technologically outmatched. They were learning to fight smarter, to use creativity and adaptability as weapons. Even as victories accumulated, the cost of resistance remained high. Entire neighborhoods lay in ruins, millions had been displaced, and countless families mourned the loss of loved ones. But despite the grief, humanity refused to surrender. Communities came together, finding strength in solidarity. Survivors helped each other rebuild shelters, share food, and provide comfort. The shared experience of struggle and resilience transformed fear into determination, The alien empire also began to face unforeseen challenges. Their initial plans relied on overwhelming force and fear, but humans' unpredictable responses complicated their strategies. The invaders had assumed that technological superiority would ensure victory, but they had underestimated the ingenuity and willpower of the people of Earth. The more humans adapted, the more the aliens struggled to maintain control. A turning point came when scientists successfully adapted alien technology for human use. By understanding energy signatures and shield mechanisms, they managed to develop weapons capable of breaching the defenses of smaller ships. It was not enough to destroy the largest battleships, but it allowed humans to engage in guerrilla-style strikes, ambushing and damaging the enemy in ways previously thought impossible. Each success, no matter how small, boosted morale and strengthened the resolve to continue fighting. Meanwhile, the social fabric of humanity changed in profound ways. The crisis forced people to look beyond borders, ideologies, and differences. Nations that had once been rivals collaborated, sharing resources, knowledge, and manpower. Communities that had lived in isolation opened their doors to strangers in need. The invasion became a catalyst for unity, showing that when survival is at stake, humanity's capacity for empathy and cooperation can be as powerful as any weapon. In addition, humans began to exploit the alien empire's overconfidence. By studying attack patterns, scientists and strategists predicted which cities would be targeted next. Evacuation plans were refined, defenses strengthened, and surprise counterattacks were planned. The invaders were no longer always in control. They faced a population that could anticipate their moves, resist their attacks, and strike back unexpectedly. This shift in momentum was subtle but significant, demonstrating that resilience and intelligence could counter even the most advanced technology. As months passed, humanity became more daring. Resistance operations grew in scale and sophistication. Covert teams infiltrated alien supply zones, sabotage missions delayed reinforcements, and pilots executed increasingly complex aerial maneuvers to challenge alien dominance in the skies. Ordinary civilians continued to support these efforts, supplying critical information, resources, and moral support. Every individual contribution mattered, showing that the strength of a united people could challenge even the greatest power in the galaxy. The alien empire, now aware that Earth was far from a passive target, began to reconsider its strategy. They had encountered resistance before, but never a species so adaptable, so unpredictable, and so united in its determination to survive. For the first time, their confidence wavered. Humanity's resilience was proving to be a problem they had not anticipated. The very qualities that the aliens had dismissed, courage, creativity, and unity, were now humanity's greatest weapons. By the end of this stage, Earth had transformed into a planet of resistance. The people who had once lived ordinary lives had become fighters, strategists, and innovators. Their victories were not complete, but they were meaningful. They had learned that fear could be managed, danger could be confronted, and hope could be seized. Humanity had begun to change in ways no one could have imagined before the invasion. The shock and fear that had gripped the world were now being replaced by a fierce determination. People had learned that survival required more than hiding it, demanded courage, creativity, and collaboration. Communities that had once focused only on their own lives were now reaching out to neighbors, strangers, and even rival nations. It was becoming clear that if humans were to survive, unity was their greatest weapon. In cities and towns across the globe, people worked together to fortify their homes and neighborhoods. Makeshift barricades appeared in streets underground. Tunnels were mapped and expanded for safety, and lookout teams were organized to warn of approaching alien crafts. Ordinary citizens became scouts and messengers, carrying vital information from one place to another. Their bravery was quietly heroic, often unseen but absolutely essential to humanity's resistance. At the same time, scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to improve humanity's defenses. They had studied the alien ships, learning to predict their movements and understand their technology. Using scraps of alien material and human ingenuity, they developed new weapons, energy shields, and communication systems. These tools were crude compared to the advanced technology of the invaders, but they were effective when used cleverly. Human adaptability was turning into a form of power the alien empire had not anticipated. Military leaders began coordinating globally like never before. For the first time in history, rival nations put aside their differences and shared intelligence, strategies, and resources. Pilots trained together in new formations. Soldiers practiced joint maneuvers, and logistics teams organized supplies on a scale never attempted before. The effort was enormous, but the need to survive left no room for pride or politics. Humanity's fight had become collective, a unified stand against a common enemy. Meanwhile, civilians continued to contribute in ways just as important as soldiers. Farmers shared food with cities under siege, volunteers repaired infrastructure, and medical teams treated the injured under dangerous conditions. Even children played roles, helping distribute supplies, relay messages, and boost morale. Every small action mattered. The alien empire might have underestimated humans' technology, but it could not underestimate their creativity, determination, or willingness to fight for one another. The alien attacks were relentless. Ships hovered over major cities, unleashing powerful energy weapons that destroyed buildings and infrastructure. But humans had learned to adapt. Warning systems allowed people to evacuate quickly. Underground shelters protected civilians, and countermeasures designed by scientists disrupted some alien systems. While destruction was inevitable, survival rates improved dramatically. Humanity was no longer merely reacting. They were strategizing, learning, and turning the invaders' strength into a challenge. Human ingenuity also led to clever strategies that surprised the alien empire. Using knowledge gained from captured ships and intercepted signals, humans launched small, targeted strikes. They destroyed supply lines, disabled smaller crafts, and occasionally hit key installations. These attacks were risky, but they had a psychological impact that was even more important than the physical damage. The aliens began to realize that humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and increasingly dangerous. In one daring operation, a team of humans worked together to sabotage an alien outpost. Engineers designed improvised explosives, pilots guided them into position, and civilians provided critical intelligence about the terrain and enemy movements. The mission succeeded, causing significant disruption and giving humans valuable time to reinforce defenses elsewhere. This success became a story told worldwide, reminder that courage, planning, and unity could turn the tide, even when facing overwhelming power. The sense of unity extended beyond immediate survival. People began sharing knowledge freely, without concern for borders or nationality. Scientists from different countries collaborated on new technologies. Soldiers trained together in shared facilities, and civilians formed networks to distribute resources and intelligence. Humanity was evolving, not just technologically, but socially and morally. The invasion had forced people to see the value of cooperation, empathy, and mutual trust. Emotionally, humanity was also adapting. Fear remained, but it no longer ruled daily life. Communities developed support systems for those traumatized by loss and destruction. People comforted one another, shared meals, and helped rebuild homes. Leaders encouraged transparency, communication, and resilience, knowing that morale was as important as weaponry. Every act of care and solidarity became a silent weapon against despair, reinforcing humanity's strength from the inside out. At the same time, humans began to innovate in ways the aliens could not predict. Scientists and engineers combined alien materials with human technology to create new types of weapons. These were not necessarily the most powerful tools, but they were effective because humans used them creatively. Some devices disrupted alien energy fields. Others created decoys to confuse targeting systems, and a few even allowed small teams to infiltrate enemy ships. Humanity was learning that cleverness, not brute force alone, could level the playing field. Resistance operations became more coordinated. Cities that had once acted independently now shared intelligence and resources. Scouts in one area could warn of incoming attacks, allowing defenses to be strengthened elsewhere. Volunteers maintained communication networks under dangerous conditions, ensuring that information flowed where it was most needed. Every successful operation, every act of bravery, fueled further determination. Humanity had discovered that resistance was not just a defensive act. It was a statement of identity and strength. Even ordinary daily life adapted to the new reality. People developed routines to ensure safety while maintaining a sense of normalcy. Children were taught to recognize warning signals and evacuation procedures. Families organized drills and contingency plans. Communities built libraries, schools, and shelters within safe zones. Amid the chaos, humans found ways to preserve culture, learning, and human connection. Survival was no longer only about living. It was about protecting the essence of humanity itself. The alien empire, frustrated by humanity's resilience, began to change tactics. Their initial strategy of overwhelming force and fear was no longer sufficient. They attempted more targeted strikes, trying to disrupt communication and supply networks. Yet humans had adapted to this as well. Intelligence networks identified weak points, and resistance groups countered attacks in creative ways. Every alien miscalculation became an opportunity for humans to demonstrate courage, ingenuity, and tenacity. Throughout this period, stories of heroism inspired hope on a global scale. Individuals risked their lives to save neighbors. Soldiers acted selflessly to protect civilians, and pilots took impossible chances to disrupt enemy operations. Each story became a lesson in courage, a model for others to emulate. The collective impact of these actions was far greater than any single military strike. It reminded everyone that humanity's greatest strength was not in technology, but in heart, courage, and unity. By now, humans had also begun to understand the alien command. Structure better. Scientists intercepted communications. Engineers analyzed energy patterns, and strategists developed plans to exploit weaknesses. Small teams launched sabotage missions, striking critical points in alien supply and communication networks. These actions slowed the enemy, gave humans time to rebuild, and demonstrated that the alien empire was not invincible. The balance of power was shifting, if only slightly, in favor of a species that had once seemed helpless. At the same time, humans continued to rebuild cities and infrastructure. Even after attacks, communities came together to repair shelters, restore power, and provide food and medical care. Volunteers organized efforts to distribute aid to those displaced by the fighting. Every act of rebuilding reinforced morale and reminded humanity that they were not only resisting, they were surviving, growing stronger, and refusing to be defeated. The human spirit, tested as never before, proved remarkably resilient. Fear persisted, but determination and unity had become dominant. Communities developed networks of mutual support, ensuring that no one faced danger alone. Soldiers and civilians learned to operate together seamlessly, each understanding that survival required courage, intelligence, and collaboration. Even in the face of destruction, humans found meaning in helping one another, sharing knowledge, and protecting life. As the weeks turned into months, humanity's resistance became legendary in its own right. Civilians and soldiers alike had transformed from frightened bystanders into skilled, resourceful fighters. Engineers and scientists were turning captured alien technology into tools of defense and offense. The alien empire, once confident in its dominance, now faced a planet that refused to submit, a species that was unpredictable, resilient, and united in ways they had not anticipated. The stage was set for even greater actions. Humanity had learned to fight strategically, to coordinate globally, and to innovate quickly. Civilians continued to play critical roles, supporting soldiers, scientists, and each other. Communities had adapted to the chaos, finding ways to survive while maintaining hope and morale. The alien empire would soon disk. Humanity had come a long way since the first day the alien empire had appeared in the sky. What began as chaos and fear had transformed into organized resistance, and the people of Earth had discovered a strength they never knew they possessed. Yet the battle was far from over. The alien empire, humiliated by repeated human victories and frustrated by the planet's unpredictable defenses, began to plan its most aggressive strikes yet. Their focus shifted to cutting off communication networks, crippling supplies, and eliminating human leaders. They believed that if they could destroy the leadership and infrastructure, Earth would finally fall. But humans had learned too much by now. For every plan the aliens devised, humans had already developed a countermeasure. Scientists intercepted enemy communications. Engineers created new defensive systems, and civilians continued to play critical roles in intelligence and support. The planet had become a living network of resistance. Every city, town, and village contributed to a web of strategy that the alien empire struggled to understand. Humanity had become more than a population. They were a force that adapted, evolved, and endured. The first sign of the empire's new strategy came with a massive fleet approaching Earth's atmosphere. Unlike previous attacks, these ships were organized in formations that suggested a direct assault on strategic human strongholds. Military analysts studied the formations and realized the goal was to crush the backbone of human resistance. Entire cities were targeted simultaneously, aiming to destroy command centers, power stations, and critical infrastructure. It was a terrifying plan, yet humans were ready. Humanity's forces responded with precision. Pilots flew coordinated attacks, using newly developed weapons that could breach the alien shields. Ground teams worked tirelessly to protect civilians, evacuate vulnerable areas, and maintain supply lines. Engineers and scientists guided these operations, offering real-time advice on weaknesses discovered in the alien systems. Ordinary citizens contributed as well, risking their lives to relay messages, repair equipment, and provide intelligence. The battle was no longer just between alien technology and human weapons, it was between human courage and relentless power. A turning point came when humans identified a critical vulnerability in the alien command structure. The Empire's fleet was connected through a centralized system, and disrupting it could create confusion and slow their response. Teams of engineers and strategists developed a plan to target this system. It was risky, as it required getting close to the enemy's central hub, but the potential reward was enormous. Volunteers, soldiers, and pilots worked together in perfect coordination, using every skill and tool at their disposal. The operation was a testament to human ingenuity and bravery. The mission began with stealth. Small ships, carrying the most skilled pilots and engineers, approached the alien command fleet. They moved quietly, avoiding detection, using signals designed to mimic debris and environmental interference. Every second was crucial. Ground-based teams monitored progress, guiding the fleet and making real-time adjustments to the plan. Civilians on Earth provided critical intelligence, observing alien movements and reporting changes that allowed humans to anticipate attacks. It was an unprecedented collaboration between military, scientific, and civilian efforts. As the mission progressed, the humans executed a precise strike on the alien command hub. Explosions rocked the fleet, and communications were disrupted across multiple ships. Chaos spread through the alien formations, their carefully coordinated plans faltering under the unexpected attack. For the first time, humanity had not just defended itself, they had actively crippled the enemy's ability to control the battle. The operation demonstrated that humans could be unpredictable, resourceful, and incredibly effective when united. Back on Earth, the news of this success spread quickly. People celebrated in the streets, in shelters, and in communities that had been living under constant fear. The victory was not only strategic, but symbolic. Humanity had struck at the heart of the alien empire and survived. It sent a message to both the invaders and humans alike. The people of Earth were capable of extraordinary feats, and their determination could not be underestimated. Yet the cost of this victory was immense. Many brave pilots and volunteers had sacrificed their lives. Entire sections of cities had been damaged during coordinated attacks. Families mourned and communities struggled to rebuild. Still, the human spirit remained unbroken. Even in grief, people found ways to continue, knowing that their courage and unity had achieved something monumental. They had turned the tide, even if only slightly, in a battle that once seemed hopeless. In the weeks following the strike, humans used the disruption in the alien fleet to strengthen their defenses. Engineers developed improved weapons, optimized supply lines, and created defensive shields that could absorb or deflect energy attacks. Pilots trained for new combat maneuvers, learning to exploit weaknesses in the alien ships with greater precision. Civilians continued to contribute by maintaining communication networks, gathering intelligence, and supporting reconstruction efforts. The synergy between scientists, soldiers, and ordinary citizens had become humanity's greatest advantage. The alien empire, shaken by the disruption, launched desperate counterattacks. They targeted cities that had been previously untouched, hoping to regain control and demonstrate dominance. But humans had anticipated these moves. Coordinated evacuation plans ensured minimal civilian casualties, and defensive systems were in place to reduce damage. Volunteers and community leaders organized relief efforts immediately, ensuring that life could continue even in the midst of destruction. Humanity had learned to survive while fighting back, and the aliens struggled to regain the upper hand. The success of human operations also inspired allied alien factions across the galaxy. Some species had quietly observed the battle, curious about Earth's resilience. News of human victories encouraged them to provide covert support, sharing intelligence, technology, and resources. While these alliances were cautious and limited, they offered a glimmer of hope that humanity's fight could influence the broader galactic balance. Humans were no longer isolated. Their courage had become a symbol that others were willing to follow. Within human society, the sense of purpose and unity deepened. Communities that had once been divided by politics, religion, or cultural differences now worked seamlessly together. Ordinary citizens took responsibility for protecting neighborhoods, assisting with logistics, and providing medical care. Soldiers and pilots trusted civilians to provide vital intelligence, and scientists relied on both groups for practical implementation of their plans. Humanity had become a network of interdependent contributors, each individual playing a role in the survival of the species. Emotionally, humans were stronger than ever. Fear still existed, but it no longer dictated behavior. People faced danger with courage, understanding that every action could make a difference. Stories of bravery became common, spreading hope and inspiring others to act. Even in grief, humans found meaning in their efforts, recognizing that sacrifice and determination could shape the outcome of the war. They had learned that hope was not passive, it was active, built through courage, innovation, and solidarity. As the months went by, humans began to plan larger offensives. With the alien fleet temporarily disoriented, scientists and strategists devised operations that could strike multiple targets simultaneously. These plans were ambitious, but humanity had learned that boldness and coordination could achieve results that seemed impossible. Pilots trained for complex maneuvers, engineers prepared advanced weapons, and civilians ensured logistics and intelligence supported every mission. Humanity had grown into a coordinated force capable of challenging even the mightiest alien technology. The alien empire, despite its technological superiority, was forced to acknowledge humanity's resilience. Their strategy of overwhelming force and intimidation was failing. Every attempt to crush human resistance had been met with clever countermeasures, coordinated strikes, and unpredictable tactics. Humans had turned their weaknesses, limited technology, vulnerability, and inexperience, into strengths through creativity, unity, and courage. The Empire had underestimated the determination of a species that refused to surrender. By the end of this phase, Earth had become a planet of resistance and adaptation. Humans had not only survived, they had begun to shape the course of the war. Every operation, every act of bravery, and every innovation strengthened their position. The alien empire had encountered a population that could fight strategically, adapt quickly, and unite in ways that technology alone could not defeat. Humanity's rage, determination, and ingenuity had shattered expectations and forced the invaders to reconsider their plans. The stage was now set for the final confrontation. Humans had learned, adapted, and evolved into a force capable of striking decisive blows. The alien empire had suffered setbacks it had never anticipated, and Earth was no longer a passive target. Humanity's unity, courage, and relentless innovation had prepared them for a moment that could change the fate of the planet and perhaps the entire galaxy. Humanity had never been more ready. After months of relentless attacks, desperate defense, and courageous counterattacks, the people of Earth had grown stronger, smarter, and more united than ever before. What had started as fear and panic had transformed into determination, strategy, and hope. Every city, town, and village contributed to the ongoing fight. Every person, from scientists to civilians, played a role in defending the planet. Humanity had become a single, coordinated force, and the alien empire would soon discover that Earth could no longer be conquered easily. The final phase of the conflict began with the alien empire launching a massive offensive. They had repaired damaged ships, reinforced their fleet, and now approached Earth with overwhelming force. The sky darkened with alien crafts, each one larger and more menacing than before. Their weapons fired in precision strikes, targeting power plants, communication hubs, and human military bases. Entire cities were under threat, yet humans were prepared. Warning systems had been perfected, evacuation plans refined, and defensive shields optimized to protect both soldiers and civilians. Military forces from every corner of the planet coordinated their efforts like never before. Pilots flew in complex formations, using new tactics learned from previous engagements. Ground teams fortified cities and critical infrastructure, while engineers ensured that energy shields and weapons were operating at peak efficiency. Civilians assisted in every way possible, maintaining communication networks, supplying essentials, providing intelligence, and helping the wounded. The world moved as one, a unified organism of resistance, ready to face the mightiest threat it had ever known. The first clashes were intense. Alien ships unleashed destructive energy beams, reducing parts of cities to rubble, but human defenses held. Pilots intercepted alien crafts, targeting weak points identified through months of careful observation. Engineers guided troops in real time, offering advice on exploiting vulnerabilities. Civilians used improvised technology to confuse enemy targeting systems and relay vital information. Even in the face of overwhelming firepower, humanity fought with courage, intelligence, and an unshakable resolve. Meanwhile, scientists worked tirelessly to develop new strategies. They had studied the alien command structure and discovered that the fleet's coordination relied on central nodes. Disrupting these nodes could create chaos and give humans a critical advantage. Plans were made to strike at these key points, combining the efforts of pilots, engineers, and specialized strike teams. Every operation was meticulously timed, every detail considered. This was humanity's chance to not only defend Earth, but to deliver a decisive blow to the invaders. Volunteers and civilians played a crucial role in these operations. Scouts observed alien movements, reporting patterns and weaknesses. Engineers repaired equipment and constructed improvised devices to exploit vulnerabilities. Medical teams tended to the wounded immediately, ensuring that every fighter could return to the battlefield. Every act, no matter how small, contributed to the larger mission. Humanity had discovered that courage was contagious and unity multiplied. The effectiveness of every individual effort. The turning point came when human strike teams launched a coordinated assault on the alien command network. Small, nimble ships approached central hubs, avoiding detection by using decoys, energy interference, and clever maneuvers. Ground teams simultaneously launched synchronized strikes on alien outposts, disrupting supplies and communications. 4. The first time, chaos spread through the alien fleet. Their carefully organized formations broke apart, leaving ships vulnerable to precise counterattacks from human forces. As the battle intensified, humanity demonstrated a level of ingenuity and bravery that the alien empire could not predict. Pilots executed daring maneuvers, striking enemy ships from unexpected angles. Engineers and scientists deployed experimental weapons that disrupted alien shields and targeting systems. Civilians continued to provide real-time intelligence, guiding pilots and soldiers through complex engagements. Every action contributed to a larger pattern, a coordinated symphony of resistance that even the advanced alien technology could not fully counter. Even as destruction raged, the human spirit shone brightly. Communities across the globe continued to support each other. Families rescued neighbors, volunteers repaired damaged infrastructure, and medical teams worked tirelessly to save lives. In shelters, people shared hope, stories, and encouragement, maintaining morale in the darkest hours. Humanity had learned that survival depended not only on weapons and strategy, but on unity, resilience, and the courage to act even when the outcome seemed uncertain. The alien empire, increasingly frustrated, intensified their efforts. They launched massive assaults on key cities, attempting to break the human defenses with sheer force. Yet humans had anticipated many of these attacks. Warning systems allowed rapid evacuation. Defensive shields absorbed or deflected energy. Blasts and coordinated counterstrikes inflicted significant damage on alien ships. Humanity had become a force that combined strategy, technology, and courage, a combination that no enemy had ever faced before. As the battle raged, the decisive moment approached. Human strike teams focused on the alien command centers, determined to disrupt coordination entirely. Pilots flew with precision, engineers guided attacks from afar, and ground teams sabotaged critical infrastructure. Civilians provided real-time intelligence, relayed messages, and supported every operation. The alien fleet, once confident and orderly, descended into confusion and vulnerability. Humanity was not merely surviving, they were seizing the initiative. Finally, the alien command structure collapsed, Explosions rocked the central hubs, severing communication between ships and leaving them disorganized. Human pilots exploited the chaos, striking vulnerable ships with unmatched precision. Ground teams launched coordinated attacks on outposts, capturing or neutralizing remaining forces. Across the planet, civilians and soldiers celebrated victories while remaining vigilant, knowing the fight was not over until the final threat had been eliminated. With the alien fleet in disarray, humanity pressed its advantage. Pilots and soldiers targeted remaining capital ships, while engineers developed specialized devices to disable energy weapons and propulsion systems. Civilians supported every effort, providing critical assistance in logistics, communication, and emergency response. Every human contribution multiplied the effectiveness of the military campaign. The planet itself seemed to rise in defense as people united to ensure that no corner of Earth would fall under alien control. By the end of the conflict, the alien empire had suffered staggering losses. Their advanced technology had been neutralized through clever tactics, ingenuity, and the relentless courage of humans. Entire fleets were destroyed, command structures dismantled, and key systems captured or repurposed by human engineers. The invaders had underestimated humanity's resilience, creativity, and ability to unite under the most dire circumstances. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. Earth had survived, and humans had prevailed. The aftermath of the war was both somber and triumphant. Cities lay in ruins, millions had been displaced, and countless lives had been lost. Yet humanity had endured. Communities rebuilt with determination, drawing strength from shared experiences of courage and survival. Scientists and engineers worked to repair and repurpose alien technology, turning instruments of destruction into tools for advancement. Civilians continued to play critical roles, ensuring that every step toward rebuilding reinforced unity, hope, and resilience. Humanity had changed forever. The invasion had revealed the true depth of courage, ingenuity, and determination within every individual. People had learned to act collectively, to innovate under pressure, and to face overwhelming challenges without surrendering. The planet had become a symbol of defiance and resilience, a reminder that even against insurmountable odds, unity and courage could triumph. The galaxy, too, had taken notice. Alien civilizations that had once feared the Empire observed Earth's resistance with awe. Some offered discreet support, while others spread tales of human ingenuity and courage. Humanity had become more than a survivor. They had become a beacon of hope, a species that could defy expectation and inspire others across the stars. Despite the losses and destruction, humanity's rage, determination, and ingenuity had shattered not just the alien assault, but also 1,000 years of galactic complacency. The alien empire had underestimated the power of unity, courage, and creativity, the very traits that define humans. Earth had survived, and humans had emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever before. In the end, it was not technology alone that had won the day, but the human spirit. Civilians, soldiers, scientists, and leaders had all contributed, proving that even in the darkest moments, hope, determination, and solidarity could overcome unimaginable odds. Humanity had faced annihilation and emerged victorious, forever transformed by the struggle, and ready to embrace a future defined by courage, unity, and the unyielding will to survive. Earth stood victorious, battered but unbroken. Humanity had defended its home, learned invaluable lessons, and discovered its own extraordinary potential. The alien empire had been forced to retreat, never again underestimating the strength of humans. The planet had endured,